Welcome back to Coffee with the Wolves, presented by JJC Athletics. I'm Damian Dennis, and this week we're going to be talking about track and field. Joining me is Coach Jeff DeGraw. Jeff, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So, had a little bit of a break there for about a month through most of March. Now you're into the outdoor portion of your season. How you feeling about that so far?
Well, overall, pretty well. I'm not feeling really well with the weather. And I think we talked before, our sport is so weather, induced, because any wind hurts anything going around the track. And in track and field, it's all about, getting qualifying performances no matter what the event to try to get as many people as you can to the national meet. But in that is, everybody trying to run the best or jump or throw the best they ever have, and then qualifying marks take care of themselves. But when it's cold or windy, all that stuff puts a damper on it. And I'll tell you, when you look at the qualifying lists from throughout the country, in some events, there's just not a lot of people qualified right now. And I take that as the weather because, from basically our schools and Mineral area in Missouri are the furthest schools west. So, and then everything east. And the east has been battered with a lot of rain and stuff like that too, like we have. So
Yep.
It's not been a good spring so far, weather-wise. Now, performance-wise, I'll take it. We have a lot of great performances on the list right now.
And we'll get into some of those performances here in a second, but I kind of want to follow up a little bit on the weather because I know, we had softball on last week and the weather impacts them just as much as it impacts, you. But I feel like you guys, unless it's, I guess, a thunderstorm, you're still out there. Is there any I don't think there has been since I've been here, but have there ever been times where like a meet's been postponed or rescheduled because of weather?
Last year they did, now like this week, they did move up some of the meet at the Chicagoland Championships because they were afraid of rain.
Yep.
So they moved it earlier instead of later. You will do that, but since I've been here, we haven't had anything really canceled, although a couple years ago when we were at Olivet, which is where we go this week, it rained, snowed, was sunny, was warm, and was cold. I mean, we had 4 seasons in one meet.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, you got to love that kind of weather.
Well,
Sarcastic.
where do we live?
Yeah.
So you can't expect. But as I tell the team, and kids complain about everything,
Yeah.
but the weather's not cold or windy just for us.
Yeah.
It's for everybody. You just got to try to block that out and perform the best you can.
Yeah, it's just another obstacle to overcome,
Yes.
really. But let's talk about some of those performances now. I know before we hit record here, you were telling me about Javion and Romello, some basketball student athletes who are also track athletes. They qualified in their events. You were telling me Alex set a school record, Alex Johnson. On the female side, Regan, you've nominated for Student Athlete of the Week. These performances, just talk about them.
Yeah, this past weekend, our 2 basketball players who are also track and field athletes, Romello Ale, he was an All-American last year in the triple jump, and he qualified this past weekend with a new school record in the triple jump. I think he's like right now 4th in the country with his performance, and I know he wanted to get back and perform very well, but I think part of it was the motivation that his basketball teammate and now track teammate, Javion Green, had his best high jump performance of his life. And he qualified, and he jumped, I think, almost right at 6'2", which is by far his personal best. I think in high school he had went maybe 5'8", 5'10", if I can remember correctly, his best. But he, technically he did some things that got him over that higher height, and he just missed the next height was about 6'3". So he's come a long way in just a few short weeks, and everything is technical. And I tell the basketball players, what do you want me to work on? And it's funny because basketball players, I told them, get in the weight room, and then if you want to 1 day a week, go dunk.
Yep.
You know, because they're jumpers.
Yeah.
They don't need a whole lot of running right now, especially at this time of the season. We got 5 weeks from now, our season's over.
Yeah.
So they just need that ability to jump.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of basketball players come out of basketball jumping really well because that's what they've been doing.
Yeah.
And both Romello and Javion are very good athletes. You know, and Javion will try to qualify in the triple jump also, and Romello in the long jump this week. But you know, they're good athletes, and you've seen that on the basketball floor, and that transfers over to track and field. And you know, when you have that multi-sport athlete like that, you know, I know Romello's won't be here next year for basketball or track because he's a sophomore, but Javion, all this stuff helps.
Yeah.
When you're a multi-sport athlete, whether it's in high school or college, because you use different muscle groups. You know, it's just like you get these multi-sport athletes, they're working on other things that's going to help them. Like I just said, basketball helps them for track. Track will help them for basketball with those little things and the ability to jump, you know, get up higher, be a little bit quicker, all that stuff.
Yeah. And moving on from those two, but other performances as well. You know, we talked about Alex before we hit record. He set a new school record. Could you?
Yeah, Alex Johnson in the 400 ran a school record. His personal best, he ran 49.3, has the leading mark in the country. We have probably 3 of the top 5 or 6 400 marks in the country. But I thought Alex ran very well. The week before, he set the school record in the 200, and nobody saw that coming, to have that type of speed in the 200. He qualified for nationals in the 200. Now, he won't run that at nationals, but I knew he had the speed, and he went out and got it, and you know, he ran a great race. And then his brother Chris ran one of his better races in the 800, although he did it in a different way than he's ever raced before. He ran the first 400 in like 53 seconds. Yeah. And he was what I call the 700-meter champ at the Chicagoland meet because everybody caught him the last 100, but he ran, you know, the second best time in the country and behind his teammate. In fact, in the 800, we have the top 3 times in the country. So our 4x800 relay, which we won last year at Nationals, looks pretty good right now. Yeah. But Chris went out really fast, and you know that will pay off for him later down the road because in a regular race he won't go out as fast, but everything's going to seem much easier now. You have to experience different things during the regular season to know and be prepared for no matter what type of race it's going to be at the national meet.
You know, on that topic, you mentioned Alex won't run the 200. How do you kind of decide, especially when you have student athletes who are qualifying in multiple events, how do you kind of decide which ones they're going to participate in?
Well, it's who can do the best. You look at the performance lists and who can do their best, but you also have to look at the time schedule of what events come real close. You know, can they score points at the national meet? And I would never deny anybody just to run a lot of events to deny them a chance at winning an individual national title. Yeah. You know, you could do 2 or 3 events and maybe score X amount of points, or you can just do 2 and maybe have the opportunity to win a national title. I never want to take that individual national title away from an individual student athlete, because that's the ultimate goal in collegiate athletics, is to be an individual national champion. Yeah. And that's a special moment. And we are allowed 3 entries per event. Like in the 800, we have 6 people qualified. Yeah. So I have to make a decision who's going to run the Open 800. Now we do have the 4th for the 4x8, and in our sport, it's pretty basic. You know, I can look at times. Yeah. All right, who has the better time? You know, it's not like, well, you know, he plays well in this situation, or no, it's time. And like in the 200 and 100, we have more than 3 qualified in both of those events. Yeah. So somebody's not going to run, but they all know that. So, that's about performing, showing up to practice, getting better every day.
Yeah. And kind of back to the performances, though, but on the women's side, who's been really standing out so far in the outdoor season?
Regan, okay, now, and how difficult it is to spell. Fermankowicz, whatever, however you pronounce it, it's long. In fact, on my list of national qualifiers, I have Regan F because I can't spell it all out on the paper. I'd have to put the font real small.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would have to do the same if she was on here and editing this. The name tag.
Correct. But she has the number 2 time in both the 200 and the number 3 time in the 100.
Yep.
So she has improved a lot this year, and both the 200 is a school record, and she's real close in the 100, which I think she gets. And she's also a key member of our 4x1 relay and 4x4 relay, and both of those are 3rd in the country right now.
Yeah.
So she's having an outstanding year.
Anyone else on the women's side?
Our distance crew is very close. Now, 4x8, they have the 2nd best time in the country. Vivian, she has done a great job. She's qualified in the 1500, the 800. She's also on the 4x4 and 4x8. Gabby and Allison are real close in both the 800 and especially the 1500, and I think it's just experience. Gabby did not run much in the indoor season because of an injury, and she's coming back. I think we'll have 3 people in the 1500 at nationals for the women. On the men's side, Logan Schmidt has done a great job with coming back from an injury. He ran 1 or 2 meets indoor because his injury wasn't running related.
Yeah.
It was shoulder. He had to have shoulder surgery after cross country season because it kept dislocating when he ran.
Yeah.
So and then he didn't come back for a while, but he's qualified now in the 10,000 and 5,000 and ran a very good race this past Saturday. And of course, our go-to guy, Nathan Sarletti.
Yep.
He has the best time in the country in the 800, the 1500. He probably will be a part of that 4x8. He's running the 5,000 this week to qualify. So he could have a big load at nationals, but with the name Sarletti, that's commonplace around here.
Yeah, for real, it really is.
And another female, our hurdlers, 400 hurdlers. We have 2 qualified. Haley Ostrom, she's in quite a few events. She had her best high jump this week. We just changed something a little bit technically, but with that, it's running around because she couldn't necessarily, after she cleared her best height, then she couldn't do much because she had to go run the 4x1.
Yeah.
But she's in a lot of events, and hopefully we pick and choose the right ones.
Yeah. On the topic of events, and it kind of harkens back to what I asked about, deciding which event student athletes participate in, kind of the same question, but with so many qualifiers spread out over many different events, how do you choose specifically what events you're going to focus on? Because you might have someone qualify in a half a dozen events.
Correct.
But
and Haley is one of those.
Yeah, but obviously you're not going to have them run that many events.
Well,
so
ask Andrew that from last year. Yeah.
Most cases you won't.
Correct. Most cases. Well, again, you have to look at the time schedule because if something's back to back, obviously you can't do both.
Yeah.
And with the field events and running events, you don't want certain things to interfere with another event. You just have to look at the performance list and see where they're going to do their best. And obviously, being in the top 8 is important for every individual athlete because if you finish in the top 8, you're an All-American.
Yeah.
And then you're an All-American for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of goals this year is to be on the podium. They talk about that a lot. In the podium, they put all 8 people up there for each event for the awards, but the top 3 are on the,
Yeah.
the podium. 1,
Yeah.
2, and 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are on the ends.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of talk about, I want to be on the podium. I want to be on the podium, which is a great goal to have because they have that goal, and hopefully that motivates them, every day in practice because it's just not the meets. Your meets are made during the week.
Right. How many meets do you guys have left before nationals?
Basically, 1, 2, 3 weeks of meets left, and that's it. Our nationals are early, the second weekend in May.
Yeah. Wow, it's going to be fun to see what you guys can do. I got one more question for you, but we're going to go a little off topic. How are you feeling about this? By the time this comes out,
It'll be
would've
over.
been over, but March Madness, just overall.
Houston.
Houston?
Yes.
All right.
I picked Houston to win it all in a couple of pools
Wow,
on the brackets. And here's where I get the complaint. You hear a lot of talk about, well, we miss the Cinderella. We want that odd team. Well, you know what? The general public, and I've gotten onto some discussion boards about this, the general public is getting what they want. You're not going to see Cinderellas anymore. Not with paying athletes. Athletes trying, you're recruiting athletes at Division I schools getting millions of dollars. It's going to be the haves and the have-nots. So expect, this is only the second time since 2008 in the history of the NCAA tournament where all 4 ones made it.
Yep.
That's going to become commonplace.
Well, we're recording this Monday morning. This episode of Coffee with the Wolves doesn't come out till Friday morning. So
Correct. We'll see how much of a Nostradamus I am. But I'm rooting for Houston. What they did in that game with Duke, it's one of the best basketball games to watch as far as excitement.
Yeah. I'm pulling for Florida, but I have no dog in the race. I didn't do any brackets this year, so.
No brackets? None?
No, I just wasn't feeling it this year. I don't know what it was, but I think it's because my schools, Oakland and Northwestern, didn't make it. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, no.
Well, Jeff, I appreciate you taking the time to come on Coffee with the Wolves, and we'll be back next week. Again, thank you.
All right, thanks.